Welcome my friends back to Marvel Snap. Mega update has dropped here in the Snap world. We have received balance patch changes, token shop card drop, we have the steampunk variant rush that is now live, and a brand new Datamine. Cards without abilities are going to be receiving abilities. Oh, it's so exciting. Let us break down everything that we have that's new. I've made this list out of all the cards that have been mentioned in the balance patch. You're going to see a lot of very familiar faces from powerful cards and decks in the meta, along with some notable omissions. Say in the Lockjaw has not been altered himself. Shuri, completely unchanged. We'll talk about the omissions later on, and Leech also completely unchanged. But the decks that these cards are most commonly appearing in have been altered. Thanos Lockjaw nerfed significantly. Shuri nerfed as well. Let's break down exactly what these changes are going to look like and how well we think these decks are going to perform in the modern meta. Let's start out with the big man himself, Thanos. Undeniably the king of the meta at the moment, getting just a little bit buzzed off the top from 6'11 down to 6'10. They can mess around with whatever power they want on Thanos' body. It's not going to make too much of a difference. The power of his deck is coming from the Infinity Stones and the other tools that he is synergizing with. So they have altered one of the stones. It is a Space Stone. They identified Space Stone as being the most problematic when married up with Lockjaw. Green Stone still doing everything it does. Also, we have beautiful VFX for all the stones and a beginning animation for Thanos, which is really fun. It's satisfying to be able to play. But Space Stone here they saw is the big problem. Before, it gave you a free move away from the location you played Space Stone to. So your play pattern was play Space Stone to Lockjaw, trade Space Stone for Giant Card, move Giant Card to other location, or move the Lockjaw to another location, and then you have all these extra open spaces for Lockjaw to play fetch with more powerful cards from your deck. Now you're not going to be able to do that. Space Stone has been turned into a one-sided cloak is the way that you can imagine it. Next turn, you can move one card to this location, and you still have the draw a card. Now, it's still going to be able to be used to free up a space from the Lockjaw location, or even pull Lockjaw to the side, but it's not going to be nearly as efficient because you're not able to trade the Space Stone itself for one of the bigger cards from the deck, and it dramatically limits Thanos's tactical capabilities in being able to send cards to closed off locations, because you have to play the stone in there. So you can't just play the Space Stone to then be able to get a poker into something like Sanctum Sanctorum, or a location like Kiln, or a stormed location, a flooded location that is locked down. You have to be able to play the Space Stone to get the movement over there, rather than just playing the Space Stone anywhere and then being able to move out where you're not otherwise able to play. Now, that's not the only way that Thanos Lockjaw was nerfed. We've got the look at Quinjet. Same stat line, new ending to the ability here ongoing. Cards that didn't start in your deck cost one less, minimum of one. Oh, Quinjet, no, one of my favorite cards getting hit here. So now it will not be able to make the Infinity Stones free. I was hoping that they were going to change the rule lawyering or the timing of Thanos, saying that Thanos was going to make the stones start in your deck so that the Quinjet would just specifically not synergize with them. But here, blanket change so that Quinjet will have the same criteria as Sarah and as Zabu. Cards are not going to be free from the energy cheats. This change certainly takes away a lot of the high roll potential that the Thanos deck had previously. You're not going to be able to play free stones in conjunction with other powerful cards from hand at the same time now, but how far down is it really dragging the Thanos deck? It's still, I think that Thanos is still going to be a top of the meta contender. I've been testing him a lot here since the balance changes came around, and the list still feels fine. The classic list, as we know, was able to win matches even if it wasn't setting up the Quinjet early, so now you're just defaulting into that all the time. I was just subbing in Iceman really quick instead of the Quinjet. It'll be interesting to see how much, if at all, this deck list changes around for the meta optimized Thanos deck. I am running Kang, which I know is a bit of a flex slot as well. I like getting the info out of the opponent, but here's the thing. You still have Leech, which was a much bemoaned control piece, a very powerful piece, and you can still cycle the Leech body through Lockjaw into something with more power on it. And so I think that Thanos is going to come out just fine. It's just bringing a little bit more parity between him and the other decks at the top of the meta. The one other card that we have here affected by the balance changes that was commonly appearing in that Thanos meta deck is the She-Hulk, down from a 6'10 to a 6'9. This is just a half step down. I was fully anticipating this balance change happening sooner, honestly. She was such a stat stick before, and if you bring her any farther down to 6'8, then she crosses the threshold where Shang-Chi will no longer affect her, so it's arguably a buff to get brought down from a 9 into a 6. So I fully understand why She-Hulk is at this power level. I think that she is still great. I think that she is one of the best Series 3 cards you can get, and once we have this revamped token shop where you can pick one Series 3 card of choice per season, I would highly recommend grabbing the She-Hulk if you do not have her already. She is such a flexible card. She can be played in a number of different powerful decks, not just Thanos, but also Shuri. So we're going to use this as our segue to talk about the doubling diva herself. How did you not get affected by the balance changes? Shuri is the glue that holds this meta deck together. Someone at Second Dinner must really like her, or they must have some vision that they want to keep her around for. She's producing far more power than any other 4-cost, and honestly her stat line is close to what some 6-costs are able to do. But here we have her. On reveal, double the power of the next card you play. A number of the pieces that were elements of her meta deck have been hit though: the She-Hulk, the Red Skull, the Arrow, and the Taskmaster. We're going to enter into a bit of a nuanced, interesting conversation here, because the Red Skull and the Arrow are not direct nerfs, they are reworks. The devs are trying to tone down their cases of how they were used in Shuri specifically, but also Arrow was the best control card against Shuri. So let's look at where the deck stands right now. Of course, we have to remember that any alterations in the power of cards that were commonly being doubled by Shuri hits ×4 for the deck overall. So She-Hulk went down 1 point. Well, the play pattern was She-Hulk into Taskmaster to produce 2 20 power cards before. Now it's going to be 2 18 power cards. So it's a total of 4 points off that line of play. It still sounds really good. At the same time, it also sounds a little bit more manageable as the opposing deck to be able to close the gap. So just cutting off a little bit from the top of Shuri to see if other people can keep up and be able not just to feel hopelessly outmatched as these huge bodies drop to the board is kind of the direction that the developers have taken. They've also altered Taskmaster dramatically here with an addendum to the ability that is then getting copied over to Absorbing Man and Mystique. All of these cards are looking at your previously played card and then copying some aspect of that card. Now, that is only if that card is in play. No longer is Taskmaster going to laser eyes into the graveyard and still be able to produce some obscene power level. And then the same thing for the Absorbing Man and the Mystique. These cards have to be in play for them to get the duplicating, the copying effect. I love this change. It is just intuitively the way that you feel these cards should work. So up against Shuri, use Shang-Chi, that big boy, as soon as you possibly can, because now you can get rid of it, hopefully before the Taskmaster is able to take advantage. Hitting on the Absorbing Man and the Mystique on a quick tangent. Mystique is so powerful. I'm fine with her getting nerfed in almost any way. I think that she's still incredibly good, even with this little restriction, because normally her cards were staying on the board that she is going to be copying. The Absorbing Man, I actually, on the previous stream, had just been playing a deck that was running on reveal Lockjaw, and I was having Absorbing Man copy the effects of cards that I was playing to the Lockjaw location. So I'm a little sad to see this happening to Absorbing Man, but I like the consistency coming in here, and I think that all 3 of these cards are still great. Now let's look at Arrow and Red Skull, our 2 reworks here, cards with both their power and their abilities being altered. 513 enemy cards at this location have +1 power, changed from 515 enemy cards gaining +2 power. So, in the situations where you are not doubling him or you are not zeroing him, he's actually better. But in the situations where you are zeroing him or trying to double him, you're going to be able to get a little bit less because his stat line is not looking nearly as intimidating as the 515 used to. And especially if you're carrying out to the Taskmaster copy, instead of 2 30-point cards, you have 2 26-point cards, 8 points off the total list. It's sounding a little bit more manageable to be able to keep up with, but it also is just a really tall order to be able to match that kind of power dropping. I think if Shuri is still able to find her line of setting up Cosmo as protection, some high tempo turn 1 and 2 play, you go into Shuri, you go into Red Skull, you go into Taskmaster, I think that's still going to lock games up pretty good. It's just in the situations where she doesn't find that play pattern, then I think she's going to be a lot less consistent. Now Arrow. Oh, Oreo, they just keep on loving changing you. Buffed in power from 5/7 to 5/8. On reveal, move the last and only the last enemy card played this turn to this location. Now she's no longer going to be your guaranteed closer if you're ahead at 2 lanes. This is going to remove a lot of very aggravating play from her. I think she's still going to hang around in the meta, but there's a lot more counterplay open now. You can just play a very weak final card on your turn. That card gets moved, but then the more powerful cards that you have to have stick where you're placing them are going to be able to make it through the Arrow. I think Arrow survives in the meta. I think that she still gets played, but she's not going to be nearly as aggravating or impactful as she had been before. And the conversation around Shuri gets even more interesting because now the Shuri play pattern of setting up Sunspot, playing Shuri, and then full passing on 5 to drop She-Hulk and Taskmaster together on 6 is a lot more viable because the Arrow before had completely defeated that line of play. But now it's going to be a lot harder to get the Taskmaster and the She-Hulk to hit on the same lane. A lot easier for Shuri to be able to have them split up and get pressure all across the board. So I'm really excited to see the deck iterations that happen here around this alteration, and if other control cards end up taking her spot. Valkyrie kind of waiting in the wings. Maybe a Shadow King as well, depending on what other decks seems to rise to be able to match the now nerfed Shuri and Thanos. Going to be very interesting to see. Now, as final housekeeping here, we have the Morbius and the Null on the change list. The Morbius before had been showing his power level in hand. Now he is not going to do that. The devs are working on a new system that is going to show the power level of these cards that are deriving the majority of their power from their ability. So it's going to be including Hawk, Devil Dinosaur in this list. But until they get that system in, they want to clean things up a little bit and have them not actually have their power in hand, because he's getting flipped by the peak to do some weird things that people were not expecting. But then Null is in an interesting spot because he is going to show the power level in hand, because it's a lot harder to be able to understand the quantity of power of cards that have been destroyed versus, say, Morbius, where you just look over at how many cards have been discarded and then multiply by 2. That's easy mental arithmetic. Being able to keep in my head all the destroyed cards and then add them all together to understand how big my Null is, I just need to be able to look at it and know with the turn timer. I'd only have a little bit to figure that out. But Null is no longer going to update his power in deck, which means that he is much better for negative Null. Now, negative Null is going to be able to pull Null every time if he's inverted from the deck with Jane Foster, which is a fun little change. It was a very fringe deck, but it is pretty fun. There's even a negative Galactus that is running around that gets a little bit better. I don't really love the Galactus myself, but being able to see these more interesting kind of fringe decks get some more consistency, I quite like, and I'm curious to see if we get a breakout potential with Null, especially around Negasonic Teenage Warhead that is coming out just today. I'm going to be testing a lot of stuff with Null once I get my hands on her. Final piece is that the Widow's Bite text has been updated just to be consistent with the way the Widow's Bite was performing. While this is in your hand, you can't draw cards. Before it had said can't draw cards from your deck, but that was not true. It was actually blocking draw cases from other card effects and some other fringe cases, so they're just cleaning things up with the wording here, and I like to see it. Now we have the card drop, Zabu, Sauron, Shanna, Dazzler, and Shadow King all moving from S5 to S4. The Zabu and the Sauron are the most competitive ones. They're the only ones I would even think about spending tokens on. The rest of these I would wait. I think the Shadow King is okay, but not to spend 3,000 tokens on. Just wait till he drops all the way down to S3. And then from 4 to 3, Umbaku, Orca, Atuma. Yeah, so the worst card in the game, an absolute joke, and somebody who hasn't found a place in any significant deck. Interesting. These guys just wait to be able to collect them normally as well. Wouldn't spend tokens on any of these guys. The Steampunk Variant Rush is live right now. Anytime that you open a collector cache for the next week, you have a chance of acquiring a Steampunk variant, avatar, or title. I know the aesthetic is not for everyone, but I'm certainly going to be enjoying it. And important for you guys to know, you can unlock the variants of cards that you do not own in this situation and this situation only. So it can be a way, if there is a card that you're interested in that's on the slate with the new art, you might be able to pick it up a little bit earlier than before. But now for what everybody's really going to be interested in, the Datamine cards. We have 3 new cards, bringing in entirely new archetype potential to the game. High Evolutionary 4/7. At the start of the game, unlock the secret ability of all your cards with no abilities. Oh, it's a complete alternate take from a Patriot deck that's trying to lead these cards with no abilities. I do have the potential abilities of all of the cards with no abilities currently in the game. There's a lot to talk about here, so let's hurry and do Iron Lad and Howard the Duck, and then Nebula as well, who has been leaked as the Battle Pass card for the month where we get the Guardians 3 coming out. So, Iron Lad, on reveal, copy the text of your deck's top card. This seems really interesting. Copying the text means that it's not going to copy the power. If he could copy Iron Man, oh mama. Take a 6-power card and then let it double everything at the location? Yes, please. How do you make this not be a complete slot machine of crazy luck? Howard the Duck. Ongoing, tap this to see the top card of your deck. At a 1/2 stat line? Yes, please. I'm going to play Howard absolutely everywhere. Knowledge is power in these kind of card games, and knowing what you're going to be able to top deck can dramatically inform the play pattern that you play, regardless of if you have something like Iron Lad. But obviously, if you do have something like Iron Lad, you can have some wild combos, and my mind is really racing on the potential of what Iron Lad can do alongside the likes of Onslaught and ongoing Force Multiplier decks, because the Iron Lad is potentially a way to be able to get a duplicate of an Onslaught to the board, which is where those decks can really pop off. It will not be very consistent, of course, but it could be very fun. And with Howard the Duck, you just get enough consistency to make me want to play it all the time. Very excited for what these two are going to bring to the game, and then what they can do in the future with this potential of cards looking to the deck and then bringing out power levels, other abilities, etc., etc. Next up is Nebula, who has gotten a revamp. So this is not actually going to be her power level. We've seen the mock-up of the Battle Pass art, which has her at a 4/6. But this is a new ability from previous data mines of a Nebula. Each turn, your opponent doesn't play a card here, plus 2 power, except the turn that you play this. Really interesting to think about as a scaling factor, a trap, trying to bog the opponent down to wanting to play against her. Otherwise, she's just going to get more powerful. If you have magic to be able to extend the game, if you have a way to be able to cheat her to the board, she is going to be a 4-cost, is our understanding. Zabu could get her down on turn 3, and then you have a long time to be able to scale. It's just a passive. Nothing is going to stop this kind of scaling. I'm quite excited for what Nebula can bring to the table. Also, in conjunction with playing around the other Guardian cards, because if you're trapping the opponent to playing against Nebula, you have better odds of landing a Gamora right afterwards to be able to score that extra points. Okay, now back to High Evolutionary, because we could talk about this guy for forever. A whole new archetype, yet adding abilities to all of these cards with no abilities. This is just such a playground of what can potentially happen. So now we're going to have Patriot or High Evolutionary. My understanding is that when the secret abilities are unlocked, that means that the cards will then have abilities and Patriot will not be able to buff them. Also, what's beautiful is that this is at the start of the game. It's not on reveal. High Evolutionary doesn't have to be in hand. He's like Thanos. You get to play with the stones, whether or not you draw the big man or ever get to play him. Patriot, and the Patriot Ultron specifically, is a little bit inconsistent, because if it doesn't find the Patriot or the Ultron, those are your huge power pieces. But High Evolutionary is going to be giving you the abilities to all the cards that you are using, regardless of where he is in deck, in hand, on board, etc. So it's going to be a lot more consistent. What we have to look at is the abilities of these cards. We're going to hop over. I checked out this article here from snap.fan. Now we're going to go over to Marvel Snap Zone. Marvel Snap Zone did not have the card art, so I wasn't looking at it initially, but we do have the potential abilities of all of the cards that currently have no abilities. Now, we don't know the exact tuning or power level of these abilities, but we do know what kind of effects they are going to have. Starting here with Evolved Wasp. On reveal, afflict a certain number of random enemy cards here with a certain amount of negative power. We're not sure how many cards is going to be afflicted or how much they are going to be debuffed, but this seems really fun. It's going to be like a yellow jacket played against your opponent instead of you. I'm assuming it's not going to be that powerful because she is a free 0/1, but it's still going to be great because you can combo Wasp at any time. And with the on reveal side of this, maybe you could even keep her in a Lockjaw style of play. Let's look at what else we have here. The evolved Misty Knight. Also, the stat lines of all the evolved cards is exactly the same. The only alteration is the ability. So Misty Knight, when you end a turn with unspent energy, give another friendly card an additional certain amount of power. Ooh, she's going to be buffing other cards if you don't spend all of your energy on a turn. The whole playstyle with not spending all of your energy on a turn, it already has synergy with Sunspot and She-Hulk, so there could be some interesting things here, and then she can be just a buff engine. We don't really have something like that yet, and it's something that I've been really waiting to see come into the game. A lot of other card games have this kind of buffing piece that will continually assist other cards. I really like this idea for Misty Knight. Again, as a 1/2, I don't think that she's going to be providing that much of a buff, but anything is going to be great. It's going to be nice. Also, this ability is not tagged as ongoing, so it doesn't look like Rogue will be able to steal or Enchantress will be able to shut it down. It's just going to always be happening. A little bit of extra consistency there. Now, the Evolved Shocker on reveal. Give the leftmost card in your hand reduced card cost. Ooh, not sure how much is going to be discounting that card again, but always having that leftmost card getting cheaper and cheaper, the extra energy efficiency, which could then fuel into having unspent energy on turns to trigger Misty Knight and maybe a couple other cards. As we keep reading here, we're seeing the deck kind of coming together already. The Evolved Cyclops. When you end a turn with unspent energy, the keyword of this entire deck, afflict a certain number of random enemies here, meaning at this location, with a certain amount of negative power. So instead of buffing our friends, we're then going to be debuffing the other side. We don't know how many or by how much, but already we're seeing some pretty tight synergy here. The challenge is clearly going to be getting enough of these to the board while still passing on energy and also finding ways to work in the Sunspot and the She-Hulk. But I'm loving these battery elements. Again, the Evolved Cyclops is not ongoing, so it's just always going to happen, exact same as Misty Knight. Evolved Thing on reveal, afflict a random enemy card here with a certain amount of reduced power. Repeat this twice more. Now, I'm not sure if this means that the debuff could randomly hit other cards as well, or if it's just going to be repeated cha-cha-cha against the same card. My understanding is with this effect, for it really to make sense, means that it is going to be random every time as to which card gets debuffed. Depending on how large this is, the thing is going to be looking quite good. Again, I'm assuming that these are not going to be big numbers on these abilities, because otherwise this deck is going to just be blowing people away. But even just a little bit, if we think that this is just -1 3 times on a 4/6 body, yes, sign me up. I will play the Evolved Thing. Very excited. I like all the debuffing. That way you get a little bit of control here against the opponent, but not using the, it doesn't synergize as well with Shang-Chi. It's pulling them down. Fun stuff going on. Evolved Abomination costs a certain amount less for each enemy card in play that's afflicted with a negative power. The synergies get tighter and tighter. Now, A-Bomb is going to get even cheaper. These are getting up into the big boys. The 5/9, the Evolved Hulk, 6/12. Very expensive to be able to fit these guys in. But if you have played the Thing, and if you have been using Cyclops, also I love Cyclops' ability. It feels very thematic with the eye laser debuffing the opponents. Anyway, back to Abomination. Being able to give them the negatives and then bring in this A-Bomb very cheaply. Ooh. I'm wondering if Soulstone fits in with Thanos. It could be kind of clunky to run Thanos and High Evolutionary together, but maybe it does work. I said that there was a little bit of synergy with the Evolved Wasp, with Lockjaw as well. Well, maybe that is going to be another look to Thanos, or just on its own. I mean, Evolved Wasp is also able to inflict reduced power, all producing potentially a free A-Bomb that slides in next to a free She-Hulk, and then you hit them with the Evolved Hulk all together at the end turn ongoing, add power for each turn you ended with unspent energy. Hulk is gonna get huge. He's really gonna smash. Oh man. Now I think that Hulk, we could actually be looking at a very powerful ability here. I'm hoping that he gains a lot of power based on every turn that you ended with unspent energy. And so then, I mean, the deck is, the list has built itself. You run all of these, you run Sunspot, you run She-Hulk, and then you see what else you want to squeeze in to be able to say, well, you run Evolved Evolutionary. So that takes you to a core of 10 cards, and then you can have the other 2 cards be control pieces, or they could be Thanos Lockjaw. And that seems to be your deck. I'm really excited to get to play around with it. The synergies seem really tight, seems really fun. Maybe it ends up, as we get our hands on these cards, we could see new cards come in that don't have abilities and then have new secret abilities. It opens up a whole design space that I love to see. And really getting to see the love shown to some of these cards that were very popular characters, but then got just shellacked in terms of you could really only play them in this one deck. And I mean, in Cyclops' case, people were not even playing him in the Patriot deck. So being able to get to see these guys have a second chance at life with the high evolutionary is amazing. You guys are going to have to let me know your thoughts on the patch down in the comments below. Love chatting everything Snap down there. I will be streaming on Wednesday and Friday, trying to get my hands on Negasonic and testing out all the new balance changes to be able to get a read on this new meta that we have been ushered into. Till next time, thank you guys for watching. Keep on snapping.